Good morning, and thank you very much, Jeff, for your introduction and quite good pronunciation of our Irish language title. I'm going to focus on safety and ask the question, is this food safe? And hopefully provide you with some answers that have come from a number of traceability projects that were funded under Framework 6. And I'm going to turn the presentation on its head and give you the summary first. And the summary is that, in general, yes, food is safe, but it cannot be guaranteed 100%. And I think Mairead McGuinness pointed this out earlier in her talk. However, the aim of the work under the traceability projects has been to reduce the risk and therefore to get a bit closer to that 100%. And that's our aim, even though we'll never actually get there. So in a general sense, what kind of things can be in your food to make it unsafe? You can have various food pathogens, and a lot of our presentation has been focused on food pathogens. The earlier talk has been on traceability of food in terms of product and packaging, but what we're talking about is microbial traceability and traceability of microorganisms in the food chain, but also a bit on chemical residues and toxins. There can also be physical contaminants in there and heavy metals. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the various food pathogens, chemical residues and the toxins. And we're going to address these issues from the perspective of the consumer, from the perspective of the scientist and from the perspective of industry. And these kind of three different perspectives cover the whole area of the food chain. And one of the important things to take away from this is that this is not my work. This has been a collaborative approach, and there have been many projects that have been involved in this work. I couldn't begin to summarise the results of €50 million worth of research in a half an hour, so I'm just going to focus on some of the outputs. But remember that there are a lot of different outputs from these, and also that some of these outputs have many contributions from many different participants. So from the point of view of the consumer first, one of the challenges, if you like, for the consumer is all these information on packaging, use by date, best before date, display date, and there can be a certain amount of confusion surrounding these words. So just as a kind of a basic explanation from the point of view of use by date, it really indicates a shelf life, and it's a safety issue. A lot of work has gone on in the traceability projects with challenge testing, with modelling the growth and behaviour of pathogens, with improved detection methods, and all of this has contributed to defining the shelf life in a better way. And this is not ignoring the consumer, it's more to benefit the consumer, but also to benefit industry from giving industry the maximum shelf life for their product without compromising consumer safety. For fish and for poultry, quantitative risk assessment has been used to calculate the remaining shelf life, and this information can be transferred through RFID systems and that kind of modern technology. And it's based on the temperature at which the food would have been stored throughout the food chain and on bacterial numbers. There have been a lot of different matrices involved in the different projects and a lot of different pathogens in combination with those different matrices, and more information can be got on this at the exhibition stands over lunch. And this use by date, which is a safety issue, is very different from a best before date. And the best before date is more to do with food quality rather than food safety. From the point of view of, if you like, is the rind safe to eat on a cheese? Currently, among other things, but the main analysis used for this determination is end product analysis. And if you go through a statistical analysis of how much samples you need to take to get the best guarantee of food safety by using end product analysis, you get hundreds of samples, and it is not practical to be giving good guarantees of safety based on a low number of samples. An alternative method to use is to use environmental monitoring in a food production unit and process control parameters. An alternative method of ensuring food safety, but don't get me wrong, you can't ignore end product analysis testing as well. As an example of some of the work that has been done in the traceability projects, you can see in the picture, you can see 4 fingerprints of 4 different strains of bacteria that were isolated in a processing environment. And without stating the obvious or overstating the obvious, you can see that the 4 fingerprints are the same. And that indicates that in the processing area you have the same bacteria surrounded in different places. And that indicates that you have a persistent strain in your environment. And that's a very different scenario than if those 4 fingerprints were different, because that would indicate that you had a number of different contamination events. And that's a different challenge for the food processing industry to address. So by using these technologies of getting fingerprints of strains from the process environment, you can tell a lot of information and you can address a situation and preempt a safety issue before it becomes an issue on the food. So those were just a couple of the consumer concerns. These consumer concerns can be addressed in many ways, but one of the ways that you can address them is by better detection methods. And Kay will take over now and talk a bit about better detection methods that can give consumers more confidence.